Hello guys, NautoAisDx here, and I want to give my thoughts of this history. Is it true? Is it not? Well, you decide, but of course, a bit of research, you might get your answer. And that is Sony or Soyny's policy history rule. So, of course, in the past, other people have talked about this. That PlayStation, Sony, believe it or not, has created, whether it's officially or unofficially, no one really knows. People couldn't even understand it. People trying to get transparency, trying to get a bottom of this, but sometimes Sony, they create this made-up policy that no one knows what it is and what's going on. Is it true? Is it not? I know I'm mumbling. It's kind of weird because the problem with a lot of these policies are that a lot of people believe it's just made up because, for one thing, the policies I'm going to give an example on, to some extent, are only based on the U.S. division. Yes, that's something that's surprisingly, that a lot of this policy is based on the U.S. division. And like I said, I can give you even some resource about it. One of them is Matt Simmons from Yo Video Game. He did talk about it. There's a story about it. And some other ones, if I can find him, if I remember, because I have heard about this. I'll try putting the link on the description box. So with that said, the backstory is first. So do PlayStation in general have a policy? The answer for that one, believe it or not, is no. So in Japan, I gotta give credit to Censored Gaming. Apparently they have something called the Sony check, which, again, they check certain things that it has to be approved, and if it doesn't, then the game doesn't get released. But that's in Japan, so that means their own Japanese game. That's what the Sony check is, and for a while they did stop doing it because the 360 with Microsoft was leading until the Kinect days, which is seriously, and they fumbled on that one, and somehow PlayStation 3 able to catch up and to some extent win that generation. You might say, what about the Wii? Again, in the beginning, but in the end, people got tired of it and they just focused on the PS3. That's what it is. But the bottom line is, the Sony check at the time during the PS3 times, they weren't really utilizing it until the end part of the PS4, transitioning possibly to the PS5. So that's in Japan there, the Sony check. And what it is to check certain things that is appropriate for the Japanese audience. And if it's not, then the game can't be published, released, something like that. So now we're going to move to the US side because this is where the policy, and believe it or not, it's kind of like, okay, this is kind of weird. So the first policy that I heard was a major thing, and a lot of people believe that it's not really official. It is something that only the U.S. doing it, and at the time they believe they're doing the right thing. They're being white knight, they're being hero about it. Therefore, the consumer, which is, no, not really, and I'll explain the why. So, the first unofficial policy, I'm going to believe most of these are unofficial. So, the first one is, believe it or not, is the anti-2D policy rule. So for people who don't know what that is, the key word there is 2D. So one thing in the US, they had Bernie Stoller marketing the PlayStation, and this person was known for, well, he doesn't like 2D games. He doesn't like anime games. He doesn't like Japanese game. It's all about, if you're going to market this to the U.S., then you got to make everything U.S. reference. So, of course, sports, beer, cowboy, guns, Call of Duty, first-person shooter, anything that's like, kind of like your stereotypical type genre for the West at the time. Again, this is in the past. So this guy basically marketed the PlayStation as it's a 3D machine. So games must be 3D, must be showcased 3D. Anything 2D is not allowed. 3D. Oh, Japanese game, JRPG, anything anime. No, the Americans don't like that. Doesn't make sense. It looks so girly because anime is so girly. Yes, there was also the rumor that he believes that anime is like not for real men. Like, you kind of notice the way I talk. It's kind of like, what the heck? This is got like a man. It's like a man stereotype thing. Yeah, but if you're in the marketing stuff, it is what it is. That was his belief. Yeah, so again, game must be 3D no matter what in the PlayStation. PlayStation 2 always has to be 3D. So anything 2D game, to some extent, is not allowed. So even if it's good, but of course you say, wait a minute, there are some 2D games that came in the PlayStation 1 and 2. Correct. But there's a lot of stipulation about it first. So the anti-2D policy rule is not so much of you can't have 2D games on the PlayStation in the US side, but the game has to be in a lower value than 3D games. So at a time during the PS2 era, the 32-bit era, you might have some sort of political issue to some extent in the video game era. So 3D games good, 2D games bad. There's been a lot of the stigmata about that. That was like a narrative they're trying to control. So, but the rule is that they're not saying that you can't have 2D games on the PlayStation, but 2D games must be in a lower value than 3D games there. So there were some game in the PlayStation I remember that kind of didn't make it. There was a rumor that there was a game from Konami, a futuristic Goemon game that's going to be on the PS1 PlayStation, but then there was some halabuba, and I think Konami of Japan just ended up not bringing it out. I don't know if either they denied it or again they just said, well, make it $20 or whatever, and like, yeah, heck no, not gonna happen. So I mean, it is what it is there. But the biggest example here is SNK Playmore in 2005 with SNK versus Capcom Chaos. Yes, the game is not as good as its counterpart, but there are a lot of hardcore SNK fans that wanted this game for the PS2 collection. And originally there was a plan, but then when they heard about the news, Ichiro, who was the president of SNK Playmore, said, yeah, not going to happen, so screw you guys. We're not going to port it on the PS2. We're just going to bring it on the Xbox. Even trying to prove a point that if you're truly an SNK fan, you'll buy an Xbox and play them, which is, nope, not really. Most of the SNK fans, the hardcore even, just said, nope, PS2 or bust. And yeah, that was it. Like a lot of people even said that PS2 or bust, to a point that it was so funny in their forum. Yes, for a while, SNK Playmore had a forum, and one of the policies that you can't ever mention is port begging to the PS2. Like they hated that to a point that, you know, people were pissed about it. The company was really irritated about it. But again, you know, like I did this in another video, getting in their face, so they got the point to a point that they actually sort of listened and released their latest PS2 SNK game on when the PS3 came out in 2007. They said they didn't have a choice at the time. They just said whatever. But from what I understand, when they did that, yeah, they were starting to cut losses. But they actually made money when they put some of their game on Steam. But it's a different story there. But the bottom line was, yeah, SNK for a while made like a big impact. They made a big fuss about this, that, oh yeah, if you really want those SNK game on 2005, go get an Xbox. I'm like, shame on them. But yeah, so again, is the anti-2D policy rule real or not? A lot of people said it's real, but it's not official because it's only exclusive in the US, not so much in Europe. It's definitely not in Japan. And why is that only the US? Well, like I said, the market there's way different. Like I said, Bernie Stoller, who does not like 2D games, does not like anime games. There was a story that they tried to hype it as a 3D system, the PS1 and the PS2. And what really happened was, beside the marketing, because like I said, it's supposed to be a 3D machine, is that a former PlayStation employee, I read it on EJ Magazine, he basically said the reason we created that policy was that they knew the consumer will not pay $50 for a 2D game. And yeah, he was right that when SNK vs. Capcom Chaos for $50 for the Xbox came out, most people said, yeah, this is overpriced. This is no, gross. Yeah, we're not buying this. Your competitor, better quality, is only $40. What the F is this? And yeah, they got the message. That's why they had to readjust their marketing strategy. But yeah, like that was the reason why they did that, implement the 2D anti-policy rule, is that they knew the consumer will not really buy it, and they just probably don't want to get a bad rap. So, oh, look at Sony's allowing them to do this, blah 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 blah. I mean, the con about that is that you cannot dictate what's best for the company what to do. The best part is to let them decide whatever, let the consumer decide. So if the consumer said no, then they'll readjust the price, the market, the strategy. But you kind of force them, and that's why to some extent SNK Playmore for a while they were like irritated with PlayStation of America or Sony America because of that. So yeah, so is it a good policy? To some extent, believe it or not, I kind of felt it is, but how it was approached was really not that good, because you're kind of dictating to the company what's good for $50 and not. You're forcing them to do something they don't want to do. And in the defense for SNK Playmore, they said the reason why they didn't do it was they would lose a lot of profit about it. At a time during the PS2 era, their argument is just because it's 2D, it doesn't mean it's bad. So it's kind of like saying, if it sounds like you're trying to put in a political issue, apologies, you cannot get the idea, the analogy there. But that's what like Ben Herman was saying, Ichiro was saying, former SNK Playmore president, like just because 2D is bad, why is it have to cost less versus like Kingdom Hearts 2? And that's another one also, is that how come certain 2D games are okay to be in the PS2 with a certain price? Well, in the case with Capcom vs. SNK 2, yeah, it may look 2D, but you know it runs in a 3D engine. The Naomi board, the architect is 3D. They kind of knew that. SNK vs. Capcom Chaos was running to a 2D engine, their Neo Geo engine, so you can see it. Guilty Gear, same deal, 3D engine. King of Fighter, believe it or not, 14, Neo Geo Battle Coliseum, it's actually 3D. It looks 2D, but the game engine and the architect is using 3D. The Antares Wave game, King of Fighter 12 and 13, Taito Type 2 or Taito Type 12 engine, again, looks 2D, but the game itself is in a 3D architect. So there's a lot of trick there. But like I said, in the case with SNK vs. Capcom, that's a Neo Geo game, and that's definitely a 2D engine there. Just saying there. So yeah, so that's what the anti-2D policy rule is. It sort of exists, but it's not official. The reason behind it is they knew consumer will complain about it, which is true. But like I said, let them voice their opinion and let them make the company hear the concern, and then maybe they'll change. But when you kind of dictate, trying to white knight, and you kind of dictate that, it sends the wrong message, just saying that. Because transition to that is another policy, is the English dub policy. So this one is actually my favorite policy. Again, is it official? No, but again, it's implemented only in the West, and a lot of companies did not like it because, again, you kind of force them to do something that they probably don't want to do because to cut costs, to save money, whatever the story is. So, for a while in the past, one of the rules is that all PlayStation game 1, 2, and 3 must have English voice no matter what. If it's a Japanese game, you must implement English voice. One of the games they did that had a controversy was Maximum Impact King of Fighter. The PlayStation 2 version actually only had English, but no Japanese because, again, they did not have time, apparently, according to Ben Herman. And, of course, another one that was forced, and I talked about it before, Yakuza in 2005 for the PS2. When that first game came out, yeah, they were forced to put English dub. They even had Mark Hamill and Michael Rosenbaum. I said that before. And what happened to that game is because they were trying to market it as a GTA clone, And yeah, unfortunately, the game bombed big time. Like, the game itself wasn't that good. Mechanic was horrible. The controls was bad. Kiwami was a different story because it was based on Yakuza 0. But this one is like, you could tell it's like 90 Day when you're trying to play that game. And in the US, the game poorly sold to a point that they went to a negative. Like, they lost a lot of money. They start owing people money to a point, and like I said before, I'm going to say it again, Sega actually bitched to Sony about it and said, this is not right. If you do this again, we're going to have some problems. Basically forcing them to do something they didn't want to, because again, there was a talk that they did not want to put Yakuza, the first game, English dub, but of course they were forced to. So that's what happened. And of course later on they kind of revised the rule that, okay, you don't have to put English dub if it's exclusive to the PlayStation console. So Yakuza 2 did not have an English dub, but it was only exclusive for that system. Then we move forward to Tecmo Koei. That's why a lot of people don't like them anymore. There are still some people. And in my opinion, them buying Gus also kind of sucked, because most of the Gus games don't even have English dub anymore. It sucked, but different story. And all this started was two things. First of all, I forgot what year they were releasing a lot of Tecmo Koei games, or Koei games to some extent, in the past, before they got bought by Tecmo or vice versa. Is they were releasing a lot of games. Troy Musou, Trinity Musou, Fist of the North Star, Musou. I know a lot of Musou, but there were other games that are non-Musou. In 1 year, though, they were releasing a lot of games. And all of them have English dub. And in the end, they were sold either poor or mediocre at best. And they did not make a lot of money, as expected. To a point that when they announced Wario Orochi 3, at a time in Japan, Tecmo Koei were hesitant to release it. Like, they didn't want to release it because they said, oh, if we release it with a lot of this character and we were forced to put English dub, we're going to go out of business. Like, they had a feeling that bring it with English dub, we're going to go out of business. They didn't want it. But of course, a lot of outcry from some of the fans. So the community manager for Tecmo Koei, I know the person on Twitter. I do follow this person. This person is cool in my book. No problem with this person. But I'm not going to mention the name for protection reason. But anyway, this person found a solution, and that is omit English dub. And again, the reason why people didn't like that idea, because as most people will say, give them an inch, they'll go for a mile. And look what happened now. All their game, unless it's Dead or Alive or Ninja Gaiden, don't have English dub. People keep saying, please have English dub. And ever since, as of right now, 2021, Tecmo Koei don't listen. They don't listen. They don't ever. And their excuse is so we can release it faster, which is true. But at the same time, they really just want to cut costs because they were not making money. And like I said, in a financial report, there was a talk about this. However, the CEO of Tecmo Koei able to convince the investors, say, it's a good move for our part because we can make more money. What does investors want in general when you're investing on a game company? To make money. Whatever, how it goes, it doesn't matter by means of necessary. Guess what? You got to make money. That's all they care. So, yeah, so the concern about English dub for them was thrown away when they said, well, we can cut costs and make more money. Well, yeah, they agree with that one. So it is unfortunate, but again, I like this one because it kind of pressured them to have English dub. But again, the downside is, it goes back to like the 2D anti-policy rule, is you're forcing them, you're dictating what's good for the company, you think it's good for the consumer. To some extent, yes, but let the consumer decide. So, you know, some people just said hashtag no dub, no buy. I mean, for me, I'll just not buy them at full price. But of course, even if they put English dub, someone's probably going to say, yeah, we're not going to bother with it. I'm not paying $50, $60 for this game. I'll wait for a sale even with English dub. So, I mean, that's the downside. But yeah, the English dub, I like it, but I know there's a bit of flaw behind it. I mean, some at least trying to put English dub, even their partial dub, like Idea Factory. But again, it's necessary, but at least it's better than nothing there. So yeah, that's the English dub policy that in the past Japanese game must have English dub no matter what. But then in the late of the PS3 all the way to the PS4, they stopped that because, again, you're kind of dictating what's best for the company. Let them decide. So if someone wants to buy the game for full price without English dub, that's their choice. And you're enforcing that, that's a problem. And speaking of enforcement, this is the big one here that I am going to give my thoughts. And this is when I'm starting to hate Sony for it. Starting 2018, everybody knew about it. It's the censorship policy. This is way worse because it's not only affecting in the West, it's actually affecting in Japan as well. And for people who don't know what it is, starting in, it could be 2017, but in 2018, they kind of enforced the censorship policy. Believe it or not, they kind of did it in the past, but because they screwed up in the PS3, so they backed down and they becoming humble. But when you become a top dog, you get arrogant. This is what happens again. So they brought back this policy to some extent. Yeah, it wasn't like it's in the past, but wasn't really that enforced. But now they really enforce it with this bullshit. Is anything that they think is harmful to the children, which is, again, bullshit, is that we have to enforce that even if the ESRB said it was okay. Even if it's an M-rated game, which is, again, bullshit because you know what happened. And the biggest problem with this censorship policy is it's basically targeting Japanese game, visual novel, illustration. It didn't affect The Last of Us 2. Didn't affect Cyberpunk 2077. It kind of showed only the Japanese games, so there was some sort of xenophobic there. That's why for a while I used to call them PlayUStation because they're trying to Americanize the PlayStation 5, but in general, they're trying to Americanize the PlayStation market because they think it's better because people buy more PlayStation in the West versus in Japan. It may be true, but that's just wrong, in my opinion. But the bottom line is, so they're trying to do a lot of Western culture rules to the Japanese, and that's what it sucks. I think that's bullshit. That you kind of show the comparison that's like, oh man, night and day. And of course, one of the biggest games is Senran Kagura Burst Renewal. Got affected. They removed the intimacy mode, and again, according to XC, they couldn't really do anything about it. It's either not release it or release it, but they said they already worked on it. They said it's going to be a waste of money, so they just said it is what it is. We had no choice. Idea Factory was the biggest one that pissed me off. Super Neptunia RPG, Dragon Star Varnier, Arc of the Alchemist, Dead or Alive, Rio Incarnation. All of those got affected by the Sony policy rule. Was bullshit. Yeah, most of them were like 2 CG scene was just altered, but in case with Dead Alive Reincarnation, not only 2 CG scene was altered, certain gallery pictures were omitted, and I'll give you an example of what was omitted. And yeah, I mean, to make up for it, well, if you buy the game, you get a month free of Funimation. I'm like, sure, whatever. And yeah, they have no problem with the anime. Well, maybe they do because they got rid of that one anime monster reviewer because apparently it's not to their standard. So yeah, so that's what the censorship policy is. And for a while, people didn't understand why they're all suddenly doing this, because one is they're a top dog. Second is former Sony president, CEO Atsushi Morita basically said, oh, to have a global standard, which is, again, no such thing. A lot of people even said it. Heck, Review Tech USA, Nintendo Prime, Yongye, Spawnwave, the Spawncast crew, they even said it's kind of ridiculous for Sony to do it. Heck, even Matt Simmons said it's ridiculous. What global standard? And that's what they said. And some people even said, oh, because for the children, we're protecting the children, which is bullshit, because the same goes with crossplay. Oh, we're protecting the children. No, you're not, because it's jeopardizing your money. So that's also bullshit there. And then some say, oh, well, because, we want to set an example to the children. Again, it goes back to the children. So global standard, protect the children, that's BS, that's a lie. But then someone actually investigate more of what's going on. And someone else at Sony actually also kind of discussed it, and they said some of the other reason why is one is that they don't want to get involved with the Me Too movement. So again, I did mention this before previous video is that, yeah, somehow, again, I don't know what the Me Too meant. I know it's a controversial one. So Sony didn't want to get involved for anything. So they don't want to make any reference to hot fictional ladies, anime ladies, whatever. So they were trying to stay away from that one. But then another one also mentioned that because they were afraid they might get sued, because apparently in the past, I wasn't aware about this, but apparently there were stories of concerned parent thinking about attempting to sue Sony for offering games that's not meant for children. Even so, there's a ESRB rating, and some of the games are not for kids, but their defense is, they said, because kids still able to get M-rated game if someone allowed it. Well, that's the parents' problem, not the company. Just saying there. But the bottom line is, Sony said they were too afraid they might get sued from that thing, so they're trying to protect themselves to some extent. So for a while in 2018, 2019, 2020, yeah, they were enforcing, especially, again, anime games. But I think starting in late 2019 to 2020, a lot of the game company are finally learning. One is the people behind Galgun. There was the latest one called Galgun Return, not even in the PS4, not even the Xbox, which is surprisingly. I did already talk about that. But yeah, they didn't want to deal with that. Ayokana was originally going to be on the PS4. However, due to the backlash and a lot of attacks to P-Cube, they just said, yeah, we are canceling the PS4 version. Another one, there was a game, I forgot the title. It was originally going to be on the PS4. They said, nope, they canceled it. It's only on Steam because, again, they said this game, I kind of mentioned it before, it's all about high school. It's like a Final Fight game, but you see panties. Again, uplift skirt to minor fictional characters, but that's a different story there, supposedly. But yeah, so a lot of developers now saying, yeah, we're not putting game on the PS4 if they're going to be bitching. The biggest one is Omega Labyrinth Z. They tried it and then push came to shove because a lot of the changes was demanding to a point that said screw this. And then the sequel on the PS4 is like a kiddie version. Even the developer said, yeah, look, you want the kiddie version or you want the real man version? So you play that on the Steam or on Switch. And then Idea Factory games, if you played all this game on Steam or on the Switch, they're all their like original version, no modification, including the latest ones coming for the Switch, Dragon Star Varnier. Again, Idea Factory is listening. A lot of this is bullshit with Sony about the censorship policy. Yeah, so of course my thoughts on that one is bullshit. So, but yeah, I mean it's a stupid again policy. They're saying because it's for the children, bullshit. Global standard, definitely bullshit. It's to protect themselves because they're top dog. They don't want to get sued because they gotta have a feeling they might get sued because of the offering games that might not be appropriate for gamers, which is most of them are adults. So why they can't make their own decision? And then of course they try to stay away from the Me Too mint, but again, different story there to some extent. Yeah, so I've been rambling a lot of this policy, but like I said, I want to make a detailed whole episode about this. So hopefully I don't have to go back to this policy again because they did talk about it in the past. But yeah, so there you go, the Sony policy history. They're just a bunch of BS. That doesn't really help anyone. The bottom line is, even so you think it's good, it's dictating. You're basically telling what's good or not to someone else. Like, are you dad or mom? I know they're not doing it for the cause of good. They're not doing it to white knight. They're doing it to protect their ass. That's really it. And most of this policy, even so, some of them may agree, the anti-2D policy rule, yeah, 2D games should be cheap, but let the company decide. English dub, I always harp on company about it, but again, let them decide. If there's a game you don't like, hey, no dub, no buy. Guess what? No rollback, no buy. That's a different story. Same analogy. Yeah, so so that's really, hopefully they're going to stop with this bullshit policy. And PlayStation also wouldn't be PlayUStation. Jim Ryan's people hate his ass. Can't blame it because he sucked. People want Sean Layden back, but again, I don't know what happened behind the scene. So those are my thoughts in the history of the Sony policy. They're like I said, unofficial, but they're real to some extent. Mostly trying to benefit the Western market, which doesn't really benefit anyone, just saying there. But it is what it is. So with that, I'll see you guys later.